This is Andi Purewal for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. We're in Manchester and I'm joined by European champion Chris Billam-Smith. Chris, firstly, how are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you, mate. Yourself?
I'm all good. Obviously, I wouldn't say strange circumstances, but I'm sure given the victory you had against Tommy McCarthy last time, yes, it was a very close fight. There was a lot of demand for the rematch. You was probably still looking onwards with your career. Are you surprised it's come back around that you find yourself here in Manchester getting ready for this rematch?
I guess so. If you look at it from around the last fight I had, as in I thought if we're going to have a rematch, usually it's an immediate rematch. And obviously I had a fight in between. But, you know, it all made sense. I was meant to fight Turchi and he then took the Rematch fight and then pulled out of that with some health issues. So, yeah, for me it was just, it's a fight that made sense. We got offered the fight. I was always happy with it. So, yeah, we're here now and just business as usual on Saturday.
Chris, it was a very exciting fight first time around for the fans, and for some fans it must have been an exhausting one to watch as well. I don't know how you guys felt in there because it was a bit relentless at times and we could see how tired you guys were. How different do you feel it will be this time around?
Yeah, I think it'll be another good fight, to be honest. I think that we'll both bring more to the fight, and I think he'll be an improved version and try and use his best attributes. And I know I've improved a lot since that fight, and especially this camp. So very focused on this fight because I know there's a lot on the line. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I think it should be a really good fight.
Chris, what are you hoping to show this time around? I'm sure you'll want to produce an even more of an emphatic victory rather than what was such a close fight last time around. So how are you looking to go about that? And given your experiences and what you've learned from sharing the ring with Tommy first time around, that you can kind of work around what his best attributes were that you learned in that first fight?
Yeah, I think we're both going to look at each other and expect certain things and look at how we beat the last version of our opponents. So we're going to improve, and I think that'll bring us both on. But yeah, I think the fight for me first time around, I looked at it and I looked very flat in the fight, and very sort of not safety first, but just I had no care, and I just sort of walked forward, and I just had one, just push forward the whole fight sort of thing. And I think this time around it'd be a lot different and be a lot more technical from myself and a lot more clinical.
How much more motivated do you feel you are heading into this rematch in comparison to the first fight then?
I'd say it's probably as even, because there's the same amount riding on the fight, but there's a little bit more because you know who you're fighting. We know each other well now, so you spend 12 rounds with someone in a decent fight, then you know a lot more about each other. So it's about making sure you can iron out all the creases from the last performance and really focus on your own game plan.
Chris, more of an emphatic victory this time around. Where does the winner go? Whether it be you or whether it be Tommy, what is next in store in your opinion, especially in your case, because you'd have 2 wins against him?
Yeah, I think for me, the whole idea for me is to put it to bed. Let's put this to bed. Mainly for my own reasons. It's not because I think people might be right and on social media who say he won, because as many said he won, and probably more said I deserve to win than they said about him. So it's not about that for me. It's just like, right, come on, let's put on a performance now and put on a real show and show people what you are capable of, and push on from here. And for me, it's just about just creeping up the levels and getting those sort of fringe world title fights, world title level and world-class contenders, and getting fights with them and then building towards the world title.
I mean, you mentioned kind of building up the rankings and edging ever closer towards the world title. You've also shared previously your desire to fight at Bournemouth Stadium. Obviously, you fight now in April. A summer fight there could very much be on the cards. Is that something which you've discussed at all with the team headlining back in Bournemouth?
Yeah, I mean, the next fight would unlikely be at the stadium. I think I'd have to build a show down there first and have a few shows, but that's been the dream for so many years, to get a show down there and then eventually fight at the stadium. So for me, that's sort of the longer term, as in like next summer. hopefully fight at the stadium, and just keep building it from there. So for me, just got to keep winning and putting in some really classy performances, and so we can get that and get the show on the road down south.
It's been a very busy time for the gym so far this year. I think everybody's been out off the top of my head. Lawrence has been out, Anthony, Ellie, the Zim brothers, Caroline, Robbie Davies has been out. Am I missing anyone?
No, I think Robbie was out. Was he out at the end of last year, December time, I think?
Might have been end of last year, but it's a busy gym and it's difficult to remember everyone.
Yeah, I think I'm the last, I'm in the longest out of a fight, because other than obviously Robbie boxed in December, so other than me and him, I think everyone else has been out this year. So yeah, it's great for Jim. Oh, and Daniel's obviously, because he's been waiting for this Trevor Bryant fight. So yeah, it's great. Like it's always someone in the gym. You're never there on your own. Training's never in just for one. And with the different levels of people we've got in the gym, obviously you've got the Azims and Caroline that are on same shows and coming up from the start of their careers, which is great to see, and having them in the gym sort of sparks new energy in the gym, because you haven't got people who've been in it for 4, 5, 6 years or been in the game for 20 years and are really just finding it tough. Sometimes you get that sort of feeling, but there's fresh energy in the gym all the time, and so many different styles, so many different personalities, but it's great to have all that in the gym and have that good mixture of different styles and abilities and different experiences in the gym as well.
Chris, just before I let you go, just going to get your thoughts on a couple of the topics. I'm sure you've probably been asked about this, whether been by somebody else at Boxing Social or myself, but we're just kind of going back over some form of old ground. I know your campmate Lawrence Okolie has called for that Mary's Breedis fight for a long time, and we've seen a number of videos from Mary's going out towards Jake Paul, amongst other things. What's been your take, and how frustrating rather has Lawrence found Mary's stance and how he's kind of conducted himself around a potential fight between the pair of them, and how he's looked more so towards a fight with Jake Paul? Yeah,
I think, to be honest, having seen the whole thing now and seen obviously if Breedis is fighting Jaya Pattaya out in Australia, I believe that's going to be in May now, I'm not entirely sure, but I genuinely just think now Breedis has just done it all for clout and social media presence and building his brand and his following and getting more eyes on him. I don't think he thinks he's ever actually going to get the fight. But, he's kind of sold himself, got himself a tattoo just for clout. I mean, obviously, if that fight got offered to him for millions and millions of pounds, which is what obviously Jake Paul generates, then he'd take it. But I don't think he genuinely believes that Jake Paul's going to fight one of the best cruiserweights of the last, 5 years. I don't think he's stupid enough to do that. He's obviously not stupid because he's making loads of money from fighting people a lot lower. But it's now Lawrence is obviously frustrated because he sees that online and probably thinks that is him actually trying to get a Jake Paul fight and avoid him. And it's like, come on, this is a real man's sport here. We're trying to create a legacy, and that's what Lawrence wants. He wants that legacy of unifying titles. But I think when I actually look at it from my point of view now, I think it's just all about clout, and everything is about him dressing up and using Jake Paul's name and brand and everything to create more followers. Because I think he's got like over 1 million followers now, Breedis. And I think when I was out sparring him, 2 years ago, he had like a tenth of that or something like that. So I mean, it's worked. It seems to have worked, but I think it's all a bit of a PR stunt, to be honest. And fingers crossed, Lawrence can get that fight. I believe it's a winnable fight for him and a great fight as well for the fans.
Away from that, just one final thing I want to get your thoughts on. Next weekend, Fury-Whyte is finally here. What's your take? What do you think happens?
I think it's an interesting fight. I think White obviously sort of locked himself away, it seems, and just focusing on that, and maybe he's just living, breathing, sleeping and thinking about that, eating about that fight. Do you know what I mean? Everything's about that, which you've got to respect. And yeah, I mean, Fury seems to turn up when it matters most. Would he see Billam-Smith as a more difficult fight than Deontay Wilder? Is his eye on the ball and all those sort of things? You never know with Tyson Fury. I mean, if I had to pick someone, I'd pick Fury just because He's got the win over Klitschko. He's got the wins over Deontay Wilder. But Dillian-Whyte is a different type of fighter. You know, they're both long, sort of tall fighters, and Dillian's a bit more flat-footed and can whack, and sort of a bit more battle hardened in that sense of of his fighting style. So yeah, I think it's an interesting fight. I mean, I'm sure plenty of people will be watching it, even though it seems to have very much gone under the radar. No one would think it was 10 days away, that fight. But yeah, it's an interesting fight. I mean, if I had to pick a winner, I'd pick Tyson Fury. But it's like I said, a really good fight.
Well, Chris, I'll leave it there and I'll leave you to go and join the rest of your team. I know you're about to shoot out to get something to eat, so I'll leave you to do that now. Good luck on Saturday, and thanks for speaking to me in Boxing Social.
Nice one. Cheers, Andy.